That's the key right there, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, that's the Bible. That his people who are called by his name shall humble themselves. And you know, we as a nation have become arrogant. Don't you think so? We've been arrogant, think that we're too good to be defeated. In 2001, we experienced some tragic event that kind of shocked the world, right? Because America thought that they were so good that all their intelligence could defeat anybody that would attack us on our soil. And look what happened. We got humbled. You know, we're going to get humbled as a nation one way or another, right? And hopefully we will get to a point where the Christians in our nation, because right now I don't believe that America is a Christian nation anymore. There's a few remnant in America that truly believe. And it's really interesting, again, when I hear the news and hear people talking about winning the evangelical vote. What does that mean anyway? And you know, I read in the paper this morning where the editor of the Star Herald, you know, I mean, who I thought was a very staunch Democrat, is now saying that he doesn't like the Republican Party and he's going to vote for a different one. And so the thing is that something is happening in America that's getting people on both sides, the liberals and the conservatives, realizing that there's something that's got to change. But you know, until we realize what the root of the problem is, nothing's going to be any different than it has in the past 16 years. And the key is, who do we trust in? We talked about that last week. Who do we trust in? You know, in our dollar bill, it said, in God we trust. Oh, what happened? Oh, in government we trust. Huh? Is that what we should have printed on our money? I mean, I hear people, the atheist is trying to take off, in God we trust, off the dollar bill. But maybe we should. Maybe we should, so that people will wake up and find out who are they really trusting in. Because, you know, it doesn't matter who we get as the president of the United States, if the people, we the people of the United States, do not trust in God, nothing is going to change. And so we, the people, we God's people, who are called by his name, have to do what? We have to, first of all, humble ourselves. And we have to look at ourselves and figure out where we stand as far as sin goes. We have to humble ourselves, and we have to change our ways and put our faith and trust in God and not in the government. I mean, if you hear the issues, right? The issues of, okay, economics. We have to do this. Of course, one side is saying you got to give people more money. And the other, they say you got to tax the rich and give to the poor. Isn't that like Robin Hood? You know what I mean? How many of you know what I'm talking about, Robin Hood? I mean, everybody looks at Robin Hood as somebody who did good things, right? He took from the rich and gave it to the poor. What's that called? That's called socialism. Is stealing ever right? No. But isn't that sort of what they're doing? Is they're taking from the people that are working hard and producing, and they're punishing those people for working hard. No, it's better for you to not work, right? Because if you don't work, then you get all the benefits you want. In the government, we trust. Let's take insurance, right? Everybody would love to have free health care. How many of you would like to have free health care? Raise your hand. And if you're not, you're lying. Because nobody wants to have to pay for their medical expenses. I don't. And so they're expecting the government to provide health care. Again, who do we trust in? In government we trust? I want to go back to the Old Testament for this. Because there's a guy named Samuel. You guys remember Samuel? Who was Samuel? He was a prophet. Samuel, when he grew old, he appointed his sons as Israel's leaders. The name of his first one was Joel, and the name of the second was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not follow his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain. Dishonest gain? What does that sound like? And accepted bribes and perverted justice. That doesn't happen today, does it? So all the elders of Israel gathered together, and they came to Samuel at Ramah, and they said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint us a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord. Everybody else has a king, and we don't have a king. We need a king. We need bigger government. We need someone to lead us. Well, what happened to in God, Jehovah, do we trust, right? We want to trust in something that we can touch and see and feel. Where does it get them? And the Lord said to him, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king, as they have done from the day I brought them out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly, and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights." Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "This is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights." Okay, he will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses. He'll put them in the army, right? And they will run in front of his chariots. And some he will assign commanders of thousands, commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others will make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. And he will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. You know, I don't want to put down what happens over in the White House, but you know, your tax money is paying for all the servants in the White House, for the chefs and all the servants. For all the traveling that he does and going golfing. And, I mean, you know what it costs for our president to go to Hawaii and go golfing, because he has to bring his entourage, right? All the security service and all that. It costs millions of dollars. Your money that you've given to the king, right? King Obama. I'll probably get in trouble for that. But isn't that what's happening? You look at any other country, a socialist, a communistic country, Korea, China, you have the person that's on top who lives like a king, and there's these other people who are working for the king because they're enslaved to him. And you know what? We are in slavery today here in America, and people don't even know it. We are slave to the government. In government, we trust. He says, he will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants, and he will take a tenth. A tenth. He will take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Who does the tenth belong to? God. And yet we have given the tenth. Now I wish we only had to pay what, 10. How many would like to pay only a tenth of your salary to the government? Your male and female servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves And when that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen. But the Lord will not, he will not answer you in that day. But the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said, we want a king over us. Now, how, I don't want to use the word stupid, but I can't think of anything else right now. You might think, yeah, they were stupid, right? What about today? Who do we trust in? Yet we think that some man, some human, especially one who is not dedicated to the Lord, who is passionate about the Lord, is leading our country, no matter who he is, whether he's a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, whatever. We're expecting this person to lead us. If that person is not totally dedicated to God, guess what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen. And you have seen by history what happens to a king who is not passionate about God. And even if there is, right, King David, who is a man after God's own heart because of who he is, a human being, sinned. And the kingdom was destroyed because a person who was not willing to do what God asked, but follow his own ways and his own desires, caused many, many things to happen to Israel. We want a king over us. God was the king. From the very beginning of the nation of Israel, God was a king, yet the Israelites kept on wanting to take the control for themselves. He says, then we will be like all the other nations with the king to lead us and go out before us and fight our battles. And when Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. And the Lord answered, listen to them, give them a king. And then Samuel said to the Israelites, everyone go back to your own town. In 2 Chronicles 7, when Solomon was finished praying, it says, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices. And the glory of the Lord filled the temple. Now close your eyes, everybody close your eyes and just picture this. Here's Solomon, who's praying in the temple, and the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices. And the glory of the Lord filled the temple. The priest could not enter the temple of the Lord because the glory of the Lord filled it. Why couldn't the priest enter the temple? Because the temple was filled with the holiness of God, and the priests were full of sin. God does not allow sin into his presence. Do you realize that? God is holy. And he cannot stand sin. That's why he had to provide the way for us to have a relationship with him so that we can enter the Holy of Holies, to have a relationship with the Holy God. You see, all the sacrifices in the world don't amount to much beans if we don't have holiness. So how many of us have holiness so that we can enter the Holy of Holies, so we can be in the very presence of Almighty God? Well, not on our own, right? It's only through what Jesus did for us that we can enter the Holy of Holies, and what Jesus did that makes us holy. That's what makes us saints. So how many good things do you have to do to get to that point where you're holy enough to be in the very presence of God? How much good do you have to do to inherit the kingdom of God? Tricky question?
You can never.
You can never. You can never do enough good things to enter that, but you do have to do something. You have to accept the fact that Jesus paid that penalty for our sin to make us holy in God's sight. So that when God looks upon us, he can have a relationship with us, because he doesn't see our sinful nature, but he sees his perfect Son, who says, I paid it for you. When he died on the cross, that word, I am finished, or it is finished, means paid in full. There's nothing more that you can do to get what you already have if you have given your life and place your faith and trust in Jesus Christ. But that doesn't mean you live the way you have lived in the past, right? Shall we keep on sinning that grace may abound? That grace may increase? God forbid. May it never be. Who are we who have died to sin continue to live it any longer? Because of the position we have in Christ already, that should give us the motivation to do what God has asked us to do, and is to live the life that God has set an example for when he sent his Son Jesus on this earth, to live perfectly. And then when we slip up, when we sin, we have an advocate before the Father, Jesus Christ, who is our high priest. He's our mediator that goes between us and a holy God. And when all the Israelites saw the fire coming down, can you imagine what that would have been like? Coming down and the glory of the Lord above the temple. And they knelt in pavement with their faces to the ground. Now, I don't know if that was because they were realizing their sinful nature and in front of a holy God, or if just the oddness of it threw them to the ground, whatever it was, but that must have been an awesome sight. But God expects reverence before himself. That we don't just kind of take it haphazardly, like nonchalant, whatever that word is, to just enter without reverence before a holy God. You think about it? When is it that when you pray the most? When something is going wrong? When you really need, you got a flat tire, God help me. It's usually, that's when we cry out to God, is when we're down in the ditch, right? They say that there's no atheists in foxholes, right? But why don't we, in our daily lives, just say, okay, Lord, here I am. I'm a sinner. But because of Jesus and what he's done for me, I offer you my life. I want to be like you. I want to strive to please you in the life that I am. And then going again back to Romans, the 12th chapter, where it talks about what is a living sacrifice, your life. The way you live your life is a living sacrifice. You see, if you're coming every Sunday to church, but the rest of the week you're living the way, nobody in the community knows that you're a Christian, then when you come to church, is God pleased for you being here and singing the songs and giving your offering? I really believe that if your life is not pleasing to God the rest of the week, when you come in here in front of other people and act like you're a holy person, I think that's detestable to a holy God. So I think that what we need to do is, throughout the week, we need to be the same as we are on Sunday, all the way through the week, with everybody that we're associated with, our spouses, and you know your family members know you better than everybody else, because they see you when you're letting your hair down, so to speak. When you got all your